This is the story of replacing my garage door opener. One day, this happened. The sprocket wore out from our garage door opener unit, and the chain just popped right off. Now I'm replacing my garage door opener. My hope was to reuse a lot of the parts that I used with my old garage door opener, so I was hoping to reuse the brackets on the ceiling, the brackets on the door, the wires in the studs for the garage door sensors. I was hoping to reuse the sensors themselves and the brackets themselves. As it turned out, the only thing that I was able to reuse were the brackets that held the garage door sensors and the bracket that was on the garage door. Our old opener was a Chamberlain LiftMaster 1/3 horsepower chain opener, and we wanted to switch to a belt opener after doing some research, just learning that the belt openers are quieter. We really didn't have a need to go anything bigger or fancier, so we stuck with the pretty base model of the Chamberlain 1/2 horsepower from Home Depot. The reason we chose Chamberlain was because I was really hoping to get to reuse a lot of the pieces, and I thought that would give us the best chance. I am very far from being an expert when it comes to garage door openers, but I wanted to share my story of the problems that I came up against and how I solved them. And hopefully this is helpful to someone, or at least entertaining. My first step is of course going to be to unplug the unit from the house so that no power is going to the unit. Now we're free to remove it. The first step I'm going to do in removing the old opener is to disconnect the door to the arm. That way the door is no longer connected to the garage door opener and we'll be able to take the whole unit down. So we're going to remove this by taking this ring off of the pin here, and then the pin will just pull out from the other side. Okay, that ring just was removed like a little keychain. Then the pin came out, and now we are detached. The door is detached from the rail. Because I'm hoping to reuse the existing door sensor and the button on the wall, I wanted to take a picture of the back to show where all of the wires were going in, and I just labeled each of the wires which side was what. So the left side is the one that's going to be going back into the button from the wall, and then the other two are the sensors at the door. Hopefully we'll be able to reuse these. The first thing to take down this old unit is there's 4 bolts that hold this in place, 2 on either side. I'm just going to start by removing those, and then we'll slowly lower this down. When we start lowering it down, it will pivot on that bracket at the end. Now that I have help to support the garage door opener unit, I'm going to just finish removing the bolts, and then we'll slowly lower it down onto the top of the stepladder. Now we're ready to remove the rest of the rail. We just need to unclip it from here by taking out this ring. Just remove that, and then the Clovis pin will slip out and we'll be able to take the whole rail down. Here I'm removing the ring from the pin that holds the rail into place into that header bracket, and removing that ring, then I'm able to remove the pin, and then it's detached. And now we will carefully lower it down all the way to the floor. So I'm going to start by assembling the rail. I've laid out the pieces here. These 5 pieces that are the same size came with the opener. That's the 7-foot base rail. And then this longer piece is what came in the extension pack that I had to purchase because we need to go with the 8-foot rail. So there's 2 rails here that have a window at the end. So both of those, one of them came with the extension, one of them came with the regular kit. They're both going to have something inside of it that you're going to take out before you start doing anything. So just make sure you remove that. We've got a bracket in one of them. And an arm, the bracket for the arm in the other. So we'll put these aside and then we'll start by assembling the rail. I laid out the rail pieces in the order that they needed to be assembled. There were two pieces that had slots in the side. One was longer and one was shorter. The shorter one I don't need. That's the one that came with the base kit. And then the longer one is the one I used because that's the one that came with the extension rail. That piece that has the slot is the one that's going to be closest to the garage door. And when I lined them up, the side that had the notch is the one that's going to be facing up. Then the remaining pieces just fit in together until they were all locked in place. I'm going to fast forward through putting the rest of these rails together because I don't need to share and show how much I struggled putting them together. Just take my word for it. Now that the rail was put together, the instructions make a suggestion that to put the slotted end to prop it up on the box that it came in, and to put the other end rested up on the actual unit itself. That will help with the assembly of the belt and then putting it into the unit. This next part is where we're going to put the trolley assembly, which I have right here, onto the rail. So first we're just going to stick a screwdriver into the hole that's in the second piece of the rail. Of course we have the rail that is facing up, and the top of the assembly is going to be facing up, and we'll just slide it right on until it gets to the screwdriver. So the next part is we're going to use this piece, which has like the pin, the flat part of the bolt at the top, and then a screw piece at the bottom, and along with this nut that has the little teeth in it. It's going to go in the hole right here, and the nut will attach with the teeth facing up. Okay, and now we're going to take this U bracket that's going to go into the rail with this facing up. And that's what's going to attach to the opener unit. I'm going to take off these two bolts and use them to fasten the rail to the opener unit. Then it's time to attach the belt. Now there's two belts that we have here. This is the belt that came with the opener, and this is the one that's for the 7-foot door, so we don't want that one. We want the one that came with our 8-foot extension set. This is the side view of the rail where it has the window. This is the one that's the closest to the door. So we're going to take the pulley and just open it up. It's supposed to have grease inside of it. It does. That's good. And now we're going to take the belt and slide it through the window. And then we'll take the pulley and put it also in the window, making sure that the ribbed side of the belt is touching the pulley. Then we'll take the big bolt and put it through the pulley and fasten it at the bottom, and we'll hand tighten that. Okay, now we're going to use a screwdriver to get this tab up to a 90-degree angle. That was a little bit trickier than I was expecting, and I kept knocking over the camera when I was trying to get the leverage I needed. but eventually we got it up to 90 degrees. Now I'm going to pull the belt through and hook it into the trolley assembly right here. Now I'm pulling the rest of the belt around the rail, and when I get to the part at the unit that has the sprocket on the top, I'm just going to make sure the ribbed part of the belt lines up with the sprocket, and then I will work on getting the belt as tight as possible so that we can connect it at the trolley assembly. Now we're going to finish connecting the belt, the other side. So we're going to need a couple pieces that are in bags in this kit. So this one has a spring on a threaded rod, and then this came 3 pieces in a connected bag. This is what's going to connect it, connect the rod to the rest of the belt. Okay, and now we will slide the bar through there and attach the spring just a couple turns, not very far. And we just want to make sure that these 2 pieces can reach, which they can't, so I need to tighten it up just a little bit. I pulled the belt tighter to the rail all the way around, including lining the sprocket back up again with the inside of the belt, and finally it gave me enough play that I could get the 2 ends close enough together. So we're going to use this piece first to link them from the back. Then this piece goes next. So now it's connected, and this one will just try to show you guys. This is the piece that will fasten it on. Okay, now we're going to move on to tightening the spring. So first we're just going to screw this until the belt is pretty tight. I hand tightened as much as I could, and I'm going to skip ahead to the next step so that you don't have to watch me tighten this for a few minutes. The next step is to remove the screwdriver, and now we are going to release the spring. Okay, this part took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out, but now I can see there's a slot in the ring here. That's where the screwdriver needs to go to be inserted to hold this in place so that you can then release the spring by turning the square part. Okay, so I'm gonna hold, I've got it tightened as much as I can. I'm gonna hold that. There we go. The last step of the assembly is to put the cover on top of the sprocket. So I just unscrewed the 3 screws that came in the unit and used those to put the plastic piece on top of the sprocket. Unfortunately, the header bracket that was with our old unit is not the same as what we will have for our new, so we're going to remove the old one and then put up the new one. Marked where the new bracket is going to be mounted, and we will drill the pilot hole right now. We're going to drill 2 pilot holes that are 2 3/16 pilot holes. And then we'll attach it with the new hardware that they gave us. Now that the header is in place in the wall, we're going to attach the rail to it by lining up the holes on the end of the rail with the holes in the header. And then I'm just going to show this on the ground before I put it up. We're going to use the longer of the two clevis pins, put that through. We put it through the bracket as well as this rail, and then once that's through, we have the little ring that will go through the hole at the end of the clevis pin. Ready to go get lined up within the bracket on the header. As soon as those are lined up, I'm going to climb up there right now, and I will put the clevis pin that I just dropped, the clevis pin in, and then secure it with the ring. I wasn't able to hold it close up while I was putting it in, but you can see this is the clevis pin that pushed through from the other side, and then this ring went through the hole at the end of the pin so that it will secure it in place. I'm about to have some help, and we're going to raise this up. Because there's already brackets put in there, we're hoping that it just fits right in and we don't have to do any adjustments to make the unit fit.
As it turns out, this first attempt didn't fit because the new rail is 2 inches longer than the old rail.
So our rail was 2 inches too long, and that meant it was not going to fit. So that's a problem. I was a little dejected, but after thinking this through, we decided we don't want to move the brackets that the opener is attached to, because that's in the center beam going across the garage, and it would require putting a whole bunch of new brackets in. The option that we do have is on the bracket that holds the header of the rail. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to cut a new piece of 2x4 to use in between the studs as opposed to going on top of the studs. And that should give us the play that we need to be able to get the extra 2 inches that we need. Okay, so I cut the piece of wood that I'm going to use, this one right here, and I just tucked it in between the two studs. It's pretty snug, but I'm not going to fasten it in until I know exactly where it's going to go. But since the bracket is already in the right spot, I don't want to have to do all of the measuring to find the right center spot. So I'm just going to use this as a guide to mark where I'm going to put the bracket on here as far as centered on the board. That way it'll be lined up in the correct spot over the door. Then I'm going to remove this bracket so that I can remove this whole board and put the bracket onto here. Okay, so now that we have this piece down on the ground, I've marked where I want to put the bracket. This is, because we're able to do this on the ground, it's going to be a lot easier than when we had to do it above my head. But I will do the same thing. I'm going to just drill pilot holes using a 3/16 bit, and then attach this using the 2 lag bolts, and then we'll get ready to put it up. So now that I have the bracket attached to the 2x4 that I'm going to put up between the studs, I'm actually going to attach it down here so that then I can attach the whole thing as a unit. All right, and now I'm going to just try to put this up.
So the second attempt failed because the position of the new unit on the bracket made the sprocket on top of the unit land directly under the ceiling beam. We're going to see in this picture of the old unit, you can see that there's very little space between the unit and the beam. So to solve this, I'm going to add a small piece of metal that will extend the size of the bracket by about 2 inches. So first we'll cut this piece of metal to the same length as the size of the bracket that's attached to the unit. Now that I've cut the piece of metal, I am just going to attach this to the inside of the opener unit, and then we'll attach the top set to the bracket that we have in the ceiling. And that should give us enough clearance to clear this. So I'm also changing out the header piece for the bracket yet again. I decided that I'd rather have used the old piece of wood that crossed the two studs as opposed to putting it in between the two studs. So I'm putting the old board back up and putting the bracket back on. And then attaching the rail to the bracket the same way I had done in previous attempts. And I'm super happy to say that our third attempt worked. Everything fit. I was able to get the bolts put through the bracket, the holes in the bracket on the beam, and everything tightened down. The next step is to put the string through the hole on the assembly that will have the handle hanging down from it. Here's the close-up of where the string went through. I just tied it off, and now it's attached. Now it's time to attach the garage door to the opener assembly. So I need to get the assembly down closer to the door so I can attach the handle. So I'm just going to remove it from the lock. And slide it down to where we can get to it. Okay, so first I'm going to attach this long arm into the assembly. This one uses the smallest clevis pin. So I'm just going to stick this in between the two pieces of the assembly that have the hole. And secure it with the ring. Okay, we already have the bracket on the door, so I don't want to touch that. We're just going to be able to reuse that, thankfully. So the curved arm goes onto the door with the holes pointing up. And this one uses the middle size clevis pin, which is the inch and a quarter. We'll go right through there. And secure that with the ring. And to attach them together, we want them to join where they're at like an angle between 1 and 2 o'clock. That looks pretty good. And we'll attach the smaller handle to the longer handle. The long handle I'm going to attach on the outside, so not the inside of the groove. So I'm going to disconnect the sensors from the old system. Save these wire nuts to use with the new. I'm hoping to be able to use this old bracket. I'm going to try that first before doing something new. I'm going to cut off a pretty long piece of this wire. I don't need very much, but just in case. I'm going to separate this. Okay, so I've got it in 2 separate pieces, and I've got this wire cutter, wire stripper that I'm going to use. Super handy. Didn't even know we had it. It's amazing. Wow, look at that. Awesome. And then before I attach it, I'm just gonna make this kind of coily by wrapping it. Okay, so now I've got it wrapped around the pen. Take the pen out, and now it's just kind of like a little old phone cord. That has the hex cut out. That's where the screw will go. Then we'll stick it in the hole, and now we'll be able to get this to go on. There we go. Nice. Okay, now we'll connect the white wires together. the wire nut back on. And we'll put the black with the red. Reattach those. All right. Go do the same thing on the other side.
So luckily I didn't need to install the wires for our opener or for the sensors at the bottom of the door. I'm just reusing the old ones, and I labeled everything from before. So these were the ones that were from the opener button. I'm just gonna put that into this first red and white hole in the back of the opener. It's kind of hard to see exactly what needs to be done, but I had a hard time figuring this out when I was taking them out, but we're basically just gonna push this orange button in until I'm able to put the red wire into that. And I should mention that this is still completely unplugged from any electricity, so we're just putting in these little wires. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to put the 2 white wires into the white hole on the right, and then I'm going to put the 2 red wires into the black hole, and that should be good for our sensors. I manually pulled the garage door back up so that the assembly was back together with the piece that moves that's attached to the belt. And now I'm just going to plug it in. We have the plug right above up here. Well, the light came on, so that's a good sign. Okay, so this is what we want. This one is going to glow green in a solid green light. This one is a solid orange light, and that means that they're all set to go. Okay, so now I have to do the adjustments to program the how high up and how far down we want this door to go. So I'm going to press and hold the adjustment button until the up arrow is flashing. Then I'm going to hit up until it's up where I want it to be open, and that is good. So then I'm going to hit the adjustment. Now I'm going to test to make sure those adjustments were correct. So I'm just putting a board down on the bottom of the floor right underneath the center of the door, and the door should stop if I've done the adjustments correctly. Yay, and it went back up. That's perfect. And now the next test we have to do is just for the sensors, so we just have to put an object down and try to close the door. And it's just clicking. So okay, what I'm going to do now is put the battery in. This is the backup battery. It's super heavy, so I can see why they have you put it in afterwards. That would be real heavy to put that up. I'm going to unplug. There we go. Open that, then I'm just going to unscrew this cover here. Okay, there's 2 wires in here. One's red, one's black. And I'm just going to plug the red onto the red wire and plug the black onto the black wire. And get those wires back in there. Put the cover back on. Okay, so I want to reprogram this first button. I have a Honda. What I needed to do was hold this button and this button next to each other for at the same time. So I pressed this for 20 seconds, let it turn flashing orange, although it looked kind of red to me. And then while it was flashing red, I then pressed this at the same time until that light that was up there started flashing green. And now this works. Yay! Now I'm going to be using our old keypad to connect it with our new opener. It gives the instructions following the steps of the lift master up in here, and it says that you need to know the color of the learn button on the opener. Up on the opener, the learn button is yellow, so I'm going to follow the instructions and see how I can get this to work. So I'm going to hold the star and the pound key until the lights stop blinking. Okay, now I'm going to enter the password, but I'm going to go off video for that part. And now press pound. Then I'm going to press the enter button with the number of times that corresponds with my garage door opener type. So it's just 1. And then press and release the 0 button. Press and release the learn button 1 time on the garage door opener. 1 time. Then I just entered the pin 1 more time and pressed enter until I heard clicks up on the garage door, and then it should be connected. Haha, look at this.
So the only update after this project was completed is that I did end up having to replace the wires that run from the garage door unit down to the sensors at the door. After a couple of days, the wires were no longer working, so I replaced it with the new ones that came with the unit. Other than that, everything's working great, and I'm really happy with how this came out. Thank you so much for watching.